Why is senior management commitment important? Who could tell me? Why is it one of the key principles of food safety standard? Anybody? Senior management commitment. Well, think about it. If you have a food company and the senior managers are not committed to food safety, it's not going to work, right? So you need support for your quality assurance team, your food safety team, and if the owner of the company or the senior managers, let's say you have to wear a hairnet, and they don't wear a hairnet, they walk through the facility, you know, the workers will say there's no leadership from the top. All right, so this chart shows you many countries around the world that subscribe to this BRCGS food safety standard, including Mexico. There are many companies in Mexico that are audited against the BRCGS food safety standard. We have ISO 22000, that's another food safety standard. It is not recognized by GFSI, but it's one of the food safety standards that are available for sites. We have FSSC 22000, which was developed in the Netherlands. So relatively new, they started in 2009. This standard is recognized by GFSI, and they have, they keep increasing in their coverage internationally. So quite a few companies have subscribed to this food safety program. They have something a little different to other food safety programs, a positive environmental impact by reducing food loss and food waste. So the auditor would audit this particular section of their standard. Right, so the ISO programs is all about management systems, but ISO 22000 is not recognized, while FSSC 22000 is recognized by GFSI. SQF, as I mentioned, was started in Australia for farm operations, but the company was bought out in the US by the Food Marketing Institute, and they created a food standard. So they have a lot of coverage in the United States, the SQF food standard, and also in Mexico. There are quite a few manufacturing sites that sell into the United States. They are audited against the SQF food safety standard. And it is recognized by the Global Food Safety Initiative. Now, besides retailer certifications, there are a number of retailers that, well, you have food safety certifications, and then retailers, big stores, have their own food safety certification. Like Costco, everybody knows Costco. If a food manufacturer wants to sell to Costco, they have to meet, let's say, the BRCGS food safety standard, as well as any extra Costco requirements. McDonald's, Asda, Walmart, they all have their own food safety standard. So a manufacturer will have to meet the BRCGS standard, as well as anything extra that's included in the retailer's certification. Some retailers ask sites to also do agricultural certifications as a condition of selling to them. So with Global Gap, you have identification back to the farms. What farm produced the product? You have gluten-free and then companies that want to sell their product into the United States, they would add on a Food Safety Modernization Act questionnaire to their audit. In Mexico, we have non-certification, Norma Oficial Mexicana. So a set of rules that ensure products sold in Mexico meet specific safety, quality, and performance standards. So in order to sell products in Mexico, the company has to identify which non-standard they must meet. prepare documents, get inspected by the Mexican government, and then they receive their non-mark. And there are different criteria for maintaining compliance. So in conclusion, we've looked at food safety certification and quite a number of definitions. But food safety certification is important for increasing consumer confidence in the products, retailer confidence, assisting in government oversight of the food industry, food safety standards and certification programs. They have been implemented for many years. They are updated depending on what is happening in the industry, so they are updated continuously. Many private companies are now involved in certifying food companies, so there's a whole industry built up around food safety certifications. But of course, the overall goal is safe food for consumers. Okay, muchas gracias.
Health crisis such as COVID-19 influence the development of food safety standards?
Good question. Now, during COVID, it was not possible to travel to audit sites, okay? And so, what was introduced was virtual auditing. I had to do a number of them. I even audited 2 sites in Mexico while I sat in my office in Toronto, Canada. So, new techniques were developed during the crisis, the COVID crisis. What happens, like we said, to find objective evidence, the auditor has to look at documents. So the site could send the documents through email or share drive, and the auditor would access the documents there. When it came to the site tour, because remember, part of the audit is actually looking at employee practices, looking at the buildings, looking for pests. Somebody had to walk around with a cell phone like this, and as the auditor, I'm sitting in my office, I say, go to the left, go to the right. Okay, let's look up, let's look down. So virtual auditing was introduced. They call it remote auditing. And so that was introduced during the pandemic. Now, GFSI, the Global Food Safety Initiative, did not accept this. To this day, they don't accept a fully remote audit. So what they are accepting is what is called a blended audit. Blended in terms of the document review can be done virtually. So the factory would send all their documents by email or put it on a share drive for the auditor to review. However, when it came to the site tour, it had to be done face-to-face. So that is what is called a blended audit. All right?
Which of the problems presented, such as fraud and malicious contamination, are the most that the companies present the most, and why?
Can you repeat the question?
Which of the problems presented, such as fraud and malicious contamination, are the ones that the companies present the most, and why?
Okay, so when it comes to the standard asks the auditor to review all the company's programs and systems for fraud and substitution is part of the standard. So the auditor would look to see if the site has developed what we call a vulnerability assessment program. They must review all the ingredients to see if they are prone to fraud and substitution, and there are lots of databases online where you can see which type of ingredient is always subject to fraud. When it comes to malicious contamination, the site must have what is called a food defense plan, a written program where you have a food defense team and they are going to evaluate the premises, the people, storage facilities to see where you have vulnerability for people putting pins and needles in the product, tampering, right? The site has to find all the vulnerable parts of their business and put a food defense plan in place to avoid problems like that. So no one is more important than the other. When the auditor visits a site, they have to evaluate and see if the company has a food defense plan, how it was developed, and every year it should be reviewed. Nothing stays the same in a dynamic processing environment. So the food defense plan has to be reviewed at least annually, and also their vulnerability assessment for fraud, that has to be reviewed annually, right? So as an auditor, we always look to see, did the site develop a plan? Did they review it? Let's say you have a break-in at the back door of the site, and nobody decided to, keep a lock, like a punch system to enter the back door, and somebody broke in. It means they have to review the food defense plan because it's not working. So these are dynamic programs. There's no one that's more important than the other. Hope that answers your question.
I have a question. You mentioned about the different certifications in North America. What would you think is like the main differences of Mexican certifications and US certifications?
Okay, so we have a number of food safety certifications. All of them, well, not all of them, but most of them have international reach, okay? Even if SQF was developed by a company based in Cleveland, Ohio, if they're recognized by the Global Food Safety Initiative, anybody around the world, anybody can be audited against that standard. So you'll find a lot of Mexican companies are audited against the SQF standard for food manufacturers that was developed in the States, but then a lot of them are audited against the BRCGS standard, which is developed in the United Kingdom, right? So these standards can be used in any country. It's not anything local. The standards are owned by private companies, not the government. So they have international reach. Any other question?
Yes. When it comes to the certifications of the companies, how often do they have to renovate them?
Oh yes. So certification would be once a year. With the BRCGS food safety standard, they have grades. So you have grade A, B, C, and D. If you get a low grade C and D, then the frequency changes to 6 months until you can raise your level of food safety back up, right? Usually it's once a year, usually, but it depends on the result of the audit. So I know for sure with the BRCGS standard, you still get a certificate if you have a C or a D grade, but the frequency changes to 6 months. Yes?
Very nice presentation, James.
Thank you.
This malicious condemnation has to do with something with food terrorism?
Yes, if you could, it's a similar idea, food terrorism, because it's a deliberate act to cause harm. Deliberate act, putting pins and needles in food, putting, like bleach. Let's say I was auditing a site in Toronto, Canada one time. Everybody had gone for their lunch break, and I saw a bottle of bleach right next to a big mixing bowl where they were mixing, doing a batter for cakes. And I asked, well, what is this doing here? And they said, well, the cleaning staff forgot to put it away. Now, that is a non-conformance in an audit, because anybody could take the bleach, throw it in the batter, mixer, it will go out and nobody would know. Nobody. So if the employees don't like the boss, especially if everyone was going for lunch, anybody could take the chemical and throw it in the mix and nobody would realize that this has happened. So as an auditor, I always look for, first of all, the development of a food defense plan, right? And then what I see is one thing to have a written plan, but you walk around the site and say, what am I seeing here today? Are all the chemicals in a locked cabinet and only the supervisor has the key? Right? So that's why the audit has two main parts, document review and what you see when you actually walk around. Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.